Good morning. Good morning, everybody. I don't have a gong. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Flo. It's great to see all of you here today in this Sunday morning. I don't have a gong. Gong. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Greater Naples. My name is Joanne Husky, and I am happy to be your worship associate this morning. I want to welcome everyone. I'm glad to see so many people coming here in person. It's wonderful to see you all. But I want you all at home to know that you're equally welcome here always. And everybody out on the patio, we're glad to have you too. And we look forward to seeing you after the service. If you're new here today, please make yourself known. We want to help you connect and learn about our wonderful parish. And if you're new online and you'd like to get more involved, please contact our office at office@uunaples.org. We can put you on our email list to get information about all the amazing things that happen here during the week to promote intellectual and spiritual growth. Ours here is a welcoming community, freely seeking spiritual and intellectual growth. And we try to promote a larger community of peace, justice, and love. And we try to live those values out in our daily lives in the world. We have actually made it through our pastor's sabbatical. Tony Fisher will be back here with us at the pulpit next week after 18 weeks away. It is amazing. That time has actually gone pretty quickly. I want to thank so many people. There are many, many people to thank, and I think it's time that we do. So, first of all, I'd like to thank the board of directors, and thank you, Elaine, wherever you are, for leading that team and really keeping us on target throughout this time. I want to thank Anna Riazzi, who very ably ran the office and the administrative affairs of our whole congregation while Tony was away. And the caring committee for picking up and taking care of the pastoral care while Tony was away. We really need to applaud Sean and Abby Allison. I think without Sean and without his steering this whole thing, we would never have achieved such a very good 18 weeks. Thank you, Sean and Abby, and for your beautiful music, creative music every week. I want to thank Dan and John back in the technical affairs for keeping us all online. Excellent. And I want to thank all the WAs, worship associates, that are here and that are not here, for your creative energy, for holding these services together during this time and keeping a continuity. I want to thank the ushers and the greeters for making everybody feel welcome when they walk in the door. And I want to thank the kitchen crew for providing this nourishing after-service gathering for all of us so that we can get to know each other better. And I'd like to also thank David Bosworth for keeping this building in such a beautiful condition and improving it, in fact, while we were waiting for Tony to come back. So for everyone who did this, it is fantastic that we've gotten through it. Next Sunday, Tony will be here. I want anybody who's not been coming in person to think about coming here in person. You'll find it is quite fun to meet each other and talk to each other. And we want to make Tony welcome. So everybody on the patio, everyone here, please come next week to greet Anne and Tony. And after the service, we'll have a little celebration on the patio with some cake to welcome them after their long time away. So, today's service is about the existence of evil in the world, which we all know exists in abundance lately. I want to welcome our speaker, Kati Griffith, who is a very long time and active UUCGN member. Kati was born in Hungary and lived there through World War II, and then lived in post-war Germany. Her family immigrated to the United States in 1950. She has several degrees from the University of Chicago, and her husband, Dave, who is also an active, very active member of our congregation. They have 2 children and 4 grandchildren. Kati was an instructor at the city colleges in Chicago, a book editor, and an administrator at DMG & Associates, an accounting firm with services in local and state government. She and her husband came to Naples and became members of UUCGN in 1994. She was the president of the board for 2 years, and she started the process of building Thomas Hall and all those classrooms back there. She also brought a partnership church together with us from Transylvania, the Unitarians in Transylvania, which lasted for many years. We had this partnership. She co-chaired the auction with Flo Beckler, and for several years was instrumental in forming a UU book discussion group. She and her husband also started our well-known speaker series, Progressive Voices. Most recently, she was the chairman of the Committee on Ministry. So, welcome, Kati. Let's all take a deep breath. And please, let's settle in now. This time for us, our worship with the morning's prelude.
The opening words are from Elie Wiesel, whom we all know, the famous Holocaust survivor and Nobel Prize winner. And he said the following. He said many things. If you read Night, he said many profound and sad things. And what he said that I want to quote to you today is, "I cannot forgive." These are his words. And then he followed up by saying, "First of all, tell the truth and sensitize other people not to do evil. We aren't here to forgive. Only God forgives, I hope. But one thing he does not forgive, the evil that I have done to other human beings. Only they can forgive. If I do something bad to you, I cannot ask God to forgive me. Only you can forgive." The chalice reading. To face the world's shadows, a chalice of light. To face the world's coldness, a chalice of warmth. To face the world's terrors, a chalice of courage. To face the world's turmoil, a chalice of peace. May its glow fill our spirits, our hearts, and our lives. Please join me in our chalice lighting response. In silence night, terrors draw near, nameless fears of talon and tooth. Hopelessness yawns before us, an abyss, lone and unknown in the gloom, longing for the dawn. O sacred flame, blaze forth, wisdom brought to life, guide us with the light of hope, the warmth of love, the beacon of purpose and meaning. We are all afraid of the dark. Let there be light.
Please stand as you are able and join me in singing our opening hymn, We Would Be One, which is number 318 in our gray hymnals, and the words will be on the screen.
In our community, we take the time each week to share our joys and our sorrows because the experience of every person really matters. We're a welcoming community where we find connection, a spiritual community where we find meaning, a sharing community where our joys are amplified, and a caring community where our sorrows are lessened. So this is a time now to remember those in our lives and in the wider community who are struggling or are sick, who have lost their lives or who are grieving, and also those who serve on the forefront to help others. So right now, today, on International Friendship Day, I'd like to hold the people of Ukraine in our hearts. They have suffered so much, and we all feel connected to their sorrow and their pain. Now, as I reach my arm out and pass by this part of your part of the room, please speak out loud the name of anyone who you'd like to remember, who's struggling, who is having a sorrow. Now, we also remember those who are celebrating milestones or accomplishments and who have conquered a fear or for whom we are grateful. I want to acknowledge that our friend and colleague Dave Griffith is celebrating the, I believe, 60th anniversary of his 23rd birthday today. So as I pass my hand by you, please mention anyone for whom you have a joy and you would like us to remember. Caroline. For all those people, and for those for whom we have not mentioned, let me light this candle, and for the people of Ukraine, that they know that people all over the world are thinking of them.
Just wait. Okay. I'm sorry. I've never done this before with the electronics, so you have to forgive me. So I just want to say happy birthday, Dave. As young as he is. I also want to say happy birthday to a dear friend and a very old member of the congregation who welcomed us here in 1994, and that is Maureen Armour, who celebrated her 90th birthday yesterday. Okay. Okay. A Prayer for the World by Rabbi Harold Kushner. Let the rain come and wash away the ancient grudges, the bitter hatreds held and nurtured over generations. Let the rain wash away the memory of the hurt, the neglect. Then let the sun come out and fill the sky with rainbows. Let the warmth of the sun heal us wherever we are broken. Let it burn away the fog so that we can see each other clearly, so that we can see beyond labels, beyond accents, gender, and skin color. Let the warmth and brightness of the sun melt our selfishness, so that we can share the joys and feel the sorrows of our neighbors. Let the light of the sun be so strong that we will see all people as our neighbors. Let the earth, nourished by rain, bring forth flowers to surround us with beauty. And let the mountains teach our hearts to reach upward to heaven. Amen. Let's consider these words together in silence.
Please remain seated as we sing together our centering hymn, Once to Every Soul and Nation, which is 119 in your gray hymnals, and the words will be on the screen. Once to every soul and nation comes the moment to decide. In the strife of truth with falsehood, for the good or evil side, then to stand with truth is noble when we share its wretched crust. Ere that cause bring fame and profit, and it is prosperous to be just. Though the cause of evil prosper, yet 'tis truth alone is strong. Though its portion be the scaffold, and upon the throne be wrong, then it is the brave one chooses when the coward stands up. will the multitude make virtue of the faith they have denied.
The following poem is by a woman named Warsan Shire. She is a Somalian refugee, a British citizen. Can't hear? I'm sorry, she says I can't hear. Okay, I'll start again. I'll start, okay. So she's a Somalian refugee, a British citizen, and she has written a number of books of poetry, many of which have been translated into various languages. And also she has received quite a few awards for her books. And I think there's a pretty new one out. It's very powerful. I first heard this poem because when Tony, our minister, came back from a visit to the southern border with some other UU groups, and he was very moved by this, and I was very moved by this. But I have to tell you that this poem is about the horrors of fleeing one's home. And I just want to mention that it's graphic and visceral, and she mentions racist slurs, racially motivated violence, and sexual violence. And the language is strong, but I believe it is beautiful. No one leaves home unless home is the mouth of a shark. You only run for the border when you see the whole city running as well. Sorry. Your neighbors running faster than you, breath bloody in their throats. The boy you went to school with, who kissed you dizzy behind the old tin factory, is holding a gun bigger than his body. You only leave home when home won't let you stay. No one leaves home unless home chases you, fire under feet, hot blood in your belly. It's not something you ever think of doing until the blade burned threat into your neck. And even then, you carry the anthem under your breath, only tearing up your passport in an airport toilet, sobbing as each mouthful of paper makes it clear you won't be going back. You have to understand that no one puts their children in a boat unless the water is safer than the land. No one burns their palms under trains, beneath carriages. No one spends days and nights in the stomach of a truck, feeding on newspaper, unless the miles traveled mean something more than the journey. No one crawls under fences. No one wants to be beaten, pitied. No one chooses refugee camps or strip searches where your body is left aching, or prison, because prison is safer than a city on fire. And one prison guard in the night is better than a truckload of men who look like your father. No one could take it. No one could stomach it. No one's skin would be tough enough. The go-home blacks, refugees, dirty immigrants, asylum seekers, sucking our country dry, messed up their country, and now they want to mess up ours. How do the words, the dirty looks, roll off your backs? Maybe because the blow is softer than a limb torn off. Maybe because the blow is softer, or the words more tender than 14 men between your legs. Or the insults are easier to swallow than rubble, than bone, than your child's body in pieces. I want to go home, but home is the mouth of a shark. Home is the barrel of a gun, and no one would leave home unless home chased you to the shore unless home told you to quicken your legs, leave your clothes behind, crawl through the desert, wade through the ocean, save, drown, save, be hungry, beg, forget pride. Your survival is more important. No one leaves home until home is a sweaty voice in your ears saying, leave, run away from me now. I don't know what I've become, but I know that anywhere is safer than here. Sorry.
That's a very strong poem. As we take some time to reflect on it and on the hardships that we now know are in the world, let us also take some time to show our gratitude for this community and the ways that it has actually sustained us through dark and through good times. This morning's offering will be gratefully received. Please consider sending in your contribution today. The information you need to donate is on the screen.
The Eastern world, it is exploding, violence flaring and bullets loading. You're old enough to kill, but not for voting. You don't believe in war, but what's that gun you're toting? And even the Jordan River has bodies floating, and you tell me over and over and over again, my friend, you don't believe we're on the eve of destruction. Don't you understand what I'm trying to say? Can't you feel the fears that I'm feeling today? If the button is pushed, there's no running away. There'll be no one to save with the world in a grave. Take a look around you, boy. It's bound to scare you, boy. And you tell me over and over and over again, my friend, you don't believe we're on the eve of destruction. Yeah, my blood so mad feels like coagulating. I'm sitting here just contemplating. You can't twist the truth, it knows no regulation, and a handful of senators don't pass legislation, and marches alone can't bring integration when human respect is disintegrating. This whole crazy world is just too frustrating, and you tell me over and over and over again, my friend, you don't believe we're on the eve of destruction. Think of all the hate there is in Red China, then take a look around to Selma, Alabama. You may leave here for 4 days in space, but when you return, it's the same old place. The pounding of the drums, the pride and disgrace. You can bury your dead, but don't leave a trace. Hate your next door neighbor, but don't forget to say grace. And you tell me over and over and over again, my friend, don't believe we're on the eve of destruction. You don't believe we're on the eve of destruction.
Well, thank you. That was a special request from me because I love that song for obvious reasons. If you don't know the words, you might want to look them up. It was a song from the, from the 60s. It was a protest song, which I think we all kind of remember, those protest songs. And the eve of destruction, in my opinion, is upon us. So I'm going to let you know a little more of what I am about here, which I'm trying to find something. Sorry. Okay, there it is. Okay. So I call this sermon or homily, Good and Evil, the human version, but you might have already gotten a feeling that I'm talking more about evil than I am about good. In this world that we live in, I think there's not too many places that you can see or go that it isn't there isn't a picture of evil. But in American Unitarianism, unlike its origins in my mother's native Transylvania in the 15th century, you know, that's when Unitarianism was born, during the Reformation. And American Unitarianism has primarily been an optimistic faith. Emerson and Thoreau were upstanding members of society with a positive outlook on life and on society. Emphasis was and is on the betterment of society and the uplifting of human beings. It's not a faith based on helping you to survive vicissitudes. But surviving in a difficult world is still today part of the Unitarian faith and those who believe in it in Hungarian Transylvania. The perfectibility of man and of society is not their primary mission. Those of you who remember our long-term connection with UUA's Partner Church project will remember our Partner Church minister, Istvan Kovács, who preached here on several occasions, who was an enthusiastic and upbeat individual. Well, you'll be happy to know that just in the last year, he was elected the bishop of the Unitarian Church in Transylvania, the highest office in that denomination. We don't have bishops, but it's similar to our president of the UUA, and it is an elected position. And I personally am very happy to know that and I know all of you he's a very liberal, very interesting man. His congregants, however, often and sadly have nothing more to depend on for their religious, individual, and ethnic survival than the help of their Unitarian faith. Naturally, our faith reflects our American values. Today, though, unfortunately, those Unitarian values are less and less relevant or downright unpopular in our country. I'm reflecting on the fact, as I see it, that our goals of equality, individual determinism, and unity seem to be diminished or diminishing among large swaths of our population. So today, I'm choosing to examine this darker reality. Another word for the dark side is evil. Now, I'm not examining the devil or any Christian concepts of Satan. I don't associate with any religious ideas. This is not a religious exploration. It's not a theological concept. I'm talking about evil as I define it for this purpose, as something that intentionally causes harm. Intentionally causes harm. And I believe that definitely exists today among us here and now, and especially today. I warn you that I'm not going to offer an uplifting and positive version of contemporary life, as perhaps I should if I were a good Unitarian with all these optimism and goodwill. I am not delivering a message of hope. I'm not going to talk about the power of love or how we are a beloved community. Instead, I'm going to address the dark side of our lived lives, as depressing as we may all find that. I'm sure that most of us here are acutely aware of all the negativity that surrounds us. Rather than to try to infuse that with light, I myself have tried to understand the darker side without losing all hope. Why is it that good and evil exist together? Not just in the world, but in ourselves as human beings. Because what exists in the world has its origins within us human beings, the world's inhabitants. Maybe good and evil are even inherent in our nature or in our DNA. I think of myself as a child of war. I was born in Budapest, Hungary, just a few months after the beginning of World War II. I spent my toddler years listening to bombs fall, just as they are listening to them today in Ukraine. I learned to count as they dropped. They would start out, when a bomb comes, it starts with a whistling sound, and then when it hits, you can, of course, hear the explosion. Then you stop counting, and then the adults, your parents or whoever, they can estimate how far away the bomb might have fallen, and therefore how close it is to where you are. My first words of German, which were not native to me, were the words Achtung, Achtung, Lichtspiele, which means warning, warning, light play. And that indicates that the bombers are coming. When you heard those words, you tried to get down to the basement. My earliest memory is of my parents and grandparents, or my grandfather rather, trying to get my paralyzed grandmother out of the apartment and downstairs to the basement, which was an enormous struggle. I still have that memory in my mind as a 3-year-old, watching them try to get her out that door and down the stairs. Even at that age, I realized that we were in a desperate struggle just to survive. At 4, I remember holding my grandfather's hand as we jumped into a ditch to avoid the Allied bombers who were coming overhead. We call them, in German, Tiefflieger, Dave tells me. They're called dive bombers. They came very low, and as I was looking up at them as they were strafing the refugees on the road, I saw the pilot's face. That was a moment that I've never forgotten. That pilot was someone's son, a human being, and he was in the process of doing evil. I know he was a soldier. I know he had a command, but he was still doing evil. You don't strafe refugees, children, on the road. And I'm always reminded when I think of that experience of something you might connect to. If you remember the picture of the little Vietnamese girl running down the road after she's been hit by napalm. Remember that photograph? It's iconic of Vietnam. So nothing changes. And I won't forget either the cattle car that we lived in for months. We escaped in a cattle car. We lived in it for months and months. 12, 13 of us, mostly family. And that was our home. But the problem was that I had a cousin who was born along the way. She was born by candlelight in a barn, and my father, who was a physician, delivered her. And her mother, my aunt, was unable to nurse her. So whenever the train stopped, we had to get off. Someone had to get off the train, not me, obviously, and get some milk for the baby. Well, the train was totally unscheduled. It was whenever the engineer felt he had to stop, or the military that was on the train, they had to stop, they stopped. And then my mother would jump off the train and find a farm and find milk and come running back. On this particular occasion, which I never was able to talk about until I was like 45 years old, I couldn't put it into words. She was coming across the meadow with this bucket of milk that she was clutching, and the train started to move. It moved slowly, and it started to move, and we got more and more frightened. And as she ran across the meadow, she started to realize the train was moving too. And so she's clutching this milk, and she's running across the meadow, and we're all, everyone, my father, my uncle, my aunt, everybody is screaming to hopefully stop the train, which it did, and she made it. But, you know, in wartime, the worst thing that can happen to you is to be separated from your family, because you never know if you will ever see them again. So when you see those pictures of people in railroad stations saying goodbye to each other, grandfathers, grandmothers, now, today, in Ukraine, that's the fallout. That's the fallout. And when I see little children in those photographs or in those films, those toddlers that clutch their teddy bears and they're bewildered and they don't know what's going on and everyone's crying, that permeates the entire society. So today, my point is, the reason I'm telling you this is not because of, you know, a personal, I've shared this many times, but because I am saying to you, today is no different than 80 years ago. In my mind, we are experiencing the same things, and those things are evil. So let me ask you, in the 21st century, which is what we're in, why are we experiencing this vicious war, this war against Ukraine? And it's not the only war. It's the only war we're paying attention to. There are wars all over. There's war in Yemen that's terrible, blah, 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 blah. How is it that we have to watch the destruction of human beings, of cities, of culture, every night on television? And I don't know about you, but I feel a total sense of helplessness when I see that. Why is it that we humans have experienced evil, apparently, throughout history? Some of us to lesser or greater extent. But it could be anyone. How is it that in our lifetimes we've witnessed Holocaust after Holocaust? I mean Holocaust. Not one Holocaust. The last century, early 20th century, started with the Armenian Holocaust and proceeded to the one against the Jews, which we all know, against the Jews, the gypsies, the handicapped, the dissidents, the Holocaust in Germany. But it's happened again and again all over the world in this century. And there were the killing fields of Cambodia. Do you remember that? In the 1970s, more than a million people died. Then there was the so-called Kosovo conflict, where ethnic cleansing was ripe. Even now, we can see some of the people that directed that coming before the court in The Hague. There was ethnic cleansing by the Serbs of the Muslim Kosovans. Then the next one was the 800,000 Tutsis who died in Rwanda in 1994 as a result of Hutu hatred. The more recent extermination of the Rohingya in Myanmar continues now, since the 1990s. And then let's not even forget to mention the current systematic persecution and destruction of the Uyghurs in Western China in what we believe are similar to concentration camps. There's no hand of God in any of this. And nature isn't involved. These are not natural catastrophes. These are purely caused by human beings. And human beings like us, as much as we would like to deny it. When you look at the millions of people who have died because of each other's hatred, you can't say it's anything other than humans. And to bring things even more up to date, what about the killing fields in our own country? Right now and right here, we're becoming immune to the gun violence, and even some people in this country glory in the right to guns. The intent of a gun is to kill. Isn't that true? Isn't that a form of evil? Just last week, the Pope was in Canada, where he was apologizing to the native population for all of the ills that were perpetrated against the native people. And I thought that was wonderful. It was good. But 100 or 50 years ago later, the evil's been done. It is evil and can't be undone. And so it's been through historical time. My point is that evil emanates from human beings. And my question is why? You notice I ask a lot of questions. Why are we capable of so much good, as we Unitarians like to point out, but also of so much evil? I reread a little bit of Genesis, and I realized that the God described there actually knew about evil, and his purpose was to try to keep it away from Adam and Eve. But they insisted on knowing it, according to the story, by willfully eating the forbidden fruit. And they passed that knowledge down to the very first generation, their own children, when Cain killed his brother Abel. So according to the biblical view, that biblical view, evil was innate in human beings from the time of creation. That does make you wonder, are we all capable? Sadly, my answer is yes. I would like to believe in the basic goodness of man, I really would. But I have a lot of trouble when I see it close up. As at the massacre in Highland Park recently. That was just a couple of weeks ago. The people lying on those sidewalks, dead and injured, were on sidewalks I walked on for 40 years. I shopped there, I had friends there. Many of our friends still live there. The place that gunman was arrested was minutes from my former beautiful suburban home. I might as well have been there. It felt that close. An article I recently read told of a young Russian soldier who was fighting against the Ukrainians. And he called his mother and told her that he was in despair because he and his company of soldiers were killing people, civilians, but that he had always wanted to be a good person. This was not who he wanted to be. And she replied, "Don't feel bad. Ukrainians are not human." You're startled at that, but that is exactly what happens in any Holocaust. The Armenians were not human to the Turks. The Jews were not human to the Germans. Stalin exterminated his own people by starving them to death. I mean, it goes on and on. They've experienced evil. They've not just thought about it, they've experienced it, they've seen it. And how does the human mind deal with that? That's the good in the human mind, the ability to feel guilt. But I'm not going to talk about guilt. So you can see my point of view, and you probably think I'm jaded and negativistic. And I probably am a cynic. But I ask you all to think about what it is in human beings that makes us capable of such deeds. What is it? And in my mind, make no mistake, we are all capable, given the right circumstances, just like that young soldier. Or the guy, the kid, I want to say kid, he was 20. I have grandchildren older than him. The kid in Highland Park who was alienated. Or the totally disturbed man, 18 years old, is that a boy or man, who killed all those children in Uvalde. Apparently that human capability, or even perhaps a propensity towards evil, is present in us. Sadly, the only comfort I can find in the face of darkness is in the following words. There may be times when we are powerless to prevent evil, but there must never be a time when we fail to protest. And that is a Unitarian value that I hope we can all agree on. Thank you.
Please stand in body or spirit and join me in singing our closing hymn, which is There Is More Love Somewhere, 95 in our hymnals, and the words are on the screen. There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more love somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more hope somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. There is more peace somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more peace somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. There is more joy somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more joy somewhere. There is more joy somewhere.
Still there is hope. During our darkest moments, still there is hope. When facing our biggest challenges, still there is hope. When all we can do is put one foot in front of the other, still there is hope. When we can't find the way out, still there is hope. When all we can do to help is hold someone's hand as they cry, still there is hope. We are hope for ourselves and for one another. Always there is hope.
I'm so glad they focused on your